You ever wake up thinking your life's about to finally slow down, and by sundown you realize you're at war? That was me. Picture this. I'm a retired lawyer, dragging what's left of my sanity to the one place I thought nobody could mess with, my grandfather's farm, 120 acres of stubborn New Mexico dirt, wind-battered barns, and a farmhouse that survived more storms than most marriages. No neighbors within half a mile, no HOA, no city codes, just a guy, his goats, and the kind of silence you can taste. That was the dream. Turns out, dreams are fragile, especially when there's money on the other side of the fence. You see, before I finished buying out my cousin's share, I'd made damn sure the paperwork was bulletproof. County plats, tax docs, 2 lawyers saying this land was an island, untouched by any HOA since 1946. So when the first glossy envelope showed up, embossed, heavy, official-looking, I figured it was a joke, maybe a scam. But no, it was a "Welcome to La Tierra Alta" preserve letter, signed by the HOA queen herself, Karen Duval. Not a joke, a $3,500 fine for, get this, unauthorized perimeter fencing and visual clutter. They said my land had been annexed into their little lakeside kingdom. You know what I mean? Like I'd just woken up in a Kafka story. I didn't call. I drove. Clean boots, the blazer I hadn't worn since quitting law, straight to their office, which looked like a dentist's Pinterest fever dream. Faux stone, driftwood art, motivational quotes on the glass. Karen met me with a smile sharp enough to slice ham. She said, "We've been expecting you." I said, "You sent me a bill." She said, "Your property is now part of our community. Look, it's on the new map." She tried to play it cute, talking about visual corridors and community standards, but I could see the play. They'd filed some paperwork with the county, skipped the public hearing, and just redrew the boundaries around my farm. I laughed right in her face, short, cold, lawyer laugh. She didn't even blink. "We'll let the county decide," she said, like she'd already won. So, I hit the county office next, old clerk Janet still behind the glass. I hand her the HOA's notice. She frowns, digs out the file, and there it is, my land, outlined in blue, now wrapped in a red, preserve overlay district. Application filed by Karen's crew. Attached was some future inclusion acknowledgement from 1982, supposedly signed by my granddad. Except, he died in 1981. The signature wasn't even close. I said as much. Janet squinted at it, muttered, "Crap, that's not good," and handed me a copy. That was my proof. Forged docs. A land grab, plain as day. But the HOA didn't stop at paperwork. Soon, envelopes stacked up, more fines. Threats, a glossy community calendar with an invite to spring planting, the irony, right? Then came the white SUV, HOA compliance, magnet on the door, camera pointed at my barns and goat pens. When I confronted the guy, told him he was trespassing, he smirked, said, "That's not what the map says." So I blocked his car in, took his picture, and told him if he came back, I'd press charges. Yeah, that happened. Rumors started flying. Unpaid taxes, EPA violations, even gossip at the feed store about my livestock licensing. Flyers showed up at neighbors' doors, full-color hit pieces. "Who is Trace Miller?" with a photo of me in my field, looking like a wild man. They wanted me out, or at least outnumbered. By the time they dropped concrete barricades across my gate, big blocks, HOA logo stenciled right on them, I knew this wasn't just harassment. This was siege warfare, HOA style. The local sheriff's deputy shrugged. "Shows up as their district on our maps now," he said, squinting at his phone. "Civil matter." I wanted to laugh and scream at the same time. So I called in backup, Tom Grayson, an old friend and retired federal surveyor, the kind of guy who trusts a drone more than a notary public. I called Jane Aguilar, a journalist who'd taken down bigger fish. They both showed up, Jane with cameras, Tom with topo maps and GPS. Tom mapped the boundary lines. Found the new pins Karen's people had planted. Fake markers, not even in the right spots. Jane took one look at the inclusion form, cackled at the digital font, and started digging into county records. She found other victims, an Apache vet off-grid since the 90s, an elderly widow blindsided just like me. Meanwhile, volunteers started showing up, like Zach, who said he wanted to resist the machine. I was suspicious, but let him help anyway. 2 days later, the barn lock was busted, and a drone buzzed the fields, LTA HOA security logo flashing on the side. They were escalating. Jane's expose hit local news, then the internet. Suddenly, my farm was the poster child for land rights. Messages poured in. Turns out, this kind of HOA overreach wasn't rare, just usually quieter. So I drew a line, literally. Dug a ditch across the access strip where their road touched my property. Put up a sign, private farmland, not HOA property. HOA security came, clipboards in hand. Snapping photos, but I was ready. Their legal team threatened. I replied with drone footage. Jane's next headline. Farmer draws the line, literally. The story blew up. People sent maps. Offered legal help. I started a site, landnotlines.org. More landowners came forward. This wasn't just my fight anymore. Karen panicked. Sent private security with bolt cutters, tried to get into my shed. I had cameras everywhere. Audio, video, the works. When I caught them on tape, Jane handed it to the feds. Special Agent Ramirez called me, quiet and serious. Don't interact. We're building a case. Words like racketeering, wire fraud, conspiracy floated on the air. It felt unreal. Me, a retired lawyer with a goat farm, caught in a federal sweep. The next days were chaos. Fire on my fence line, clearly arson. Civil suits from HOA members, citing retroactive easement enforcement. My attorney, sharp as a tack, meaner than a hornet, countered with fraud, harassment, trespass, and a federal filing. Tom found a hidden surveillance transmitter buried on my side. Jane ran with the story, and suddenly, subpoenas were flying. The HOA board resigned, all but Karen. She doubled down, hired contractors to destroy the ditch, but I had them caught on camera, too. That was it. The feds closed in. Karen was arrested for fraud, conspiracy, trespassing, and about a dozen other things. The judge threw out every HOA fine, dissolved the whole organization, and ordered every sign, barrier, and camera ripped out at their expense. Standing outside the courthouse, holding that court order, I finally felt the weight lift. The neighbors, turns out, were just as relieved. They'd been bullied, too. So what now? I started a fund to help others fight. HOA overreach. Jane's documentary aired nationwide. People wrote from all over, sharing stories, looking for advice, wanting to join the fight. My sign's still there. Private land, not for sale, not for absorption. Welcome unless you're HOA. Underneath, in small letters, established 1946. Still here. Funny how a war can bring a place back to life. Funny how standing your ground draws a line everyone can see. Now, I just have one question for you. Where do you draw yours? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Tell me where you're watching from, or share your own story. Because out here, justice isn't a policy. It's the dirt beneath your boots. Let me back up a sec. Because the day after that courthouse win, I thought maybe, just maybe, things would finally settle down. But if you know anything about power, about people who aren't used to losing, you know they never go quietly. That first week, the place felt different. I'd walk the fence line, and neighbors would wave. Some even came by just to say they'd been rooting for me the whole time, though I could tell a few were still nervous, waiting to see if Karen or her crew would try something from the shadows. And honestly, so was I. See, victory doesn't just clear the air. It stirs up everything that was hiding underneath. My mailbox started filling up, not with threats or fake fines, but with letters. Handwritten notes from folks in 3 different counties, even as far off as Arizona. People sharing their own horror stories. Land grabbed, wells blocked, some HOA president threatening fines for the color of a barn door. There was a woman from Roswell. She said, "You're the first one to beat them. Don't let up." It was humbling, but it pissed me off, too, because why the hell should any regular person have to go through this in the first place? That's when I realized this wasn't just about my farm. Jane's documentary, Lines in the Dirt, was blowing up online. Thousands of comments, shares, arguments breaking out in Facebook groups, people asking, is this really how it works in America? Yeah, that happened. My attorney friend, the one who helped file the federal claim, suggested I keep the fire going while it was hot. So we took the nonprofit idea and ran with it, built out a website, partnered with a couple of land rights organizations, even set up a legal hotline. Calls started rolling in the next day. But you know how this goes. Quiet never lasts. Not 2 weeks after Karen got hauled away, there's a white pickup idling at the end of my road again. This time, it's not branded, but the guy inside is snapping photos, same kind of telephoto lens the HOA used. He's not subtle about it, either. When I walk up, he rolls down the window just a crack, says, "I'm with the insurance company, reviewing flood risk." "Sure you are." I take his picture, and he speeds off, dust trailing behind him like a cartoon. Turns out, the battle lines weren't just erased, they'd shifted. Insurance companies started sniffing around, asking questions about my risk profile and whether I intended to allow public tours on the land. It didn't take a genius to see. Karen's allies were still trying to hit me in the wallet, just wearing different uniforms. And the county? Well, some folks there were still nervous. The old deputy with the sunglasses stopped by, but this time he just asked if I needed anything. Guess he'd seen which way the wind was blowing. Meanwhile, Tom, yeah, the surveyor, still camping out in my spare room, caught a group of contractors trying to repair the old fence line on the east edge. They had the gall to show up with paperwork claiming county orders, but one look at their clipboards and I saw the same bogus signatures we'd already exposed in court. We ran them off, but it left me thinking, just how deep does this rot go? It all came to a head late one Friday when Jane called, voice tight. "I got a tip. There's another overlay petition going in next month. Different name, same backers. They're targeting the north boundary this time." I felt that cold knot in my stomach, but I was past being scared. Instead, I opened up the ranch for a community meeting, invited neighbors, press, even the sheriff. Told the whole story, warts and all, laid out the drone footage, the court order, every detail. And that night, something wild happened. People stayed late, kids running around under the porch light, neighbors who'd never spoken before sharing stories, laughing about old times, griping about new ones. Someone brought pie. Someone else brought a stack of flyers, land not lines printed across the top. For the first time in months, I felt like this place was really mine. Again, like we'd won something bigger than a lawsuit. But I won't lie to you, the scars are still there. Every so often, I'll spot a drone in the sky, or catch the tail end of some rumor online. The county started reviewing overlay approvals, and my story kicked off a whole wave of local reforms. Now, every map change has to go through a public vote, and believe me, the meetings are packed. Jane keeps covering it, too. Her follow-up report aired on PBS. She called it "When the Lines Bite Back," and I can't walk into the hardware store without someone asking if I'm that guy from the news. I just shrug and say, yeah, but I make a mean cup of coffee, too. Here's the thing. This fight, it's never really over. They'll always come back with a new map, a new name, a new lawyer. But at least now we know how to fight. And I'll tell you, the day I took a sledgehammer to the last concrete barricade, dust flying, sweat running down my back, I stood there, looking out at the field. And I laughed, long and hard, like something old and heavy had finally snapped. These days, the sign at my gate stands a little taller. It's got a dent from a stray rock, a streak of red paint. Someone tried to throw, but the words are still clear: private land. Not for sale. Not for absorption. Welcome unless you're HOA. Underneath, established 1946. Still here. And I mean it, still here. Still standing. And a little louder for the next person who tries to redraw my life without asking. So if you're listening out there, thinking your story doesn't matter or you're too small to push back, don't believe it. You draw your line, you stand on it, and you make some noise. Because sometimes justice isn't found in a courtroom or a headline. Sometimes it's a boot in the dirt, a laugh at the fence, and a sign that says you're not moving. Not today. Not ever. Now, you tell me, where do you stand? Drop your story in the comments. Tell me what line you'd draw. Or just say hi and where you're tuning in from. Because these days, it's not just about me. It's about all of us, out here holding our ground, one fence line at a time.